Thank you, Jack, for that introduction. And thank you all for being here today to celebrate the legacy and the future of BOA Editions. I want to especially thank Peter for picking this book out of a stack of manuscripts and believing in it. And I also want to thank Melissa and Jenna for countless hours of dedication to this title and to all of the BOA titles. And I want to thank the BOA Board of Directors. The first BOA book I read was Song by Bridget Pegeen Kelly, published 20 years ago, although I didn't read it until I took an undergraduate poetry class at Florida State. At the time, I was a poli-sci major, and I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And then I took this poetry class and everything changed. So I want to begin by reading a poem from Song. The poem is Percival, and again, this is by Bridget Pegeen Kelly. Percival comes. If I pretend he is not here, he grows larger in the barn, filling all the shadows. Then I cannot go in to feed the cows. And I hear those who give milk crying for milk, and I see their hearts like children's palms, opening and closing in the garden. Even in winter, I keep the garden. And Percival, who never looks at flowers, taps his fingers on the water that has frozen in buckets in the barn. I hear that tapping. Even as I heard him coming last night through my sleep, through the snow, his heavy black coat dropping like wings. So this book came about in a moment of desperation, or a year, really, of desperation. I was at the University of Cincinnati. I had this love affair. It was so intense that when it ended, I thought, I can't even be in the same nation as this man. So I applied for a Fulbright and went to Argentina. This poem is called Up Late and Likewise. It never stopped raining when I was with him, and we were wet and there were parties. He was from another decade. It was honest. With some you can never tell, but with him I could. My decade let the POWs come home. What did your decade do? The thing about him is he keeps being the thing. You could never count on him. I did. It never stopped raining, and I could. It was so honest tell. Would you like to be in the same decade with me? Would you like to be caught dead with me? Decent recipe for tilapia. Tell your back home friends it means nothing, and you will drop him as soon as you have friends in this city. If you had some friends, you would not sleep with him. If not him, who would share your tilapia? No beloved meal begins. I sit alone before a plate of fish. Find your market. Are you single? The man behind the counter asks. What to think? For meals, you are inside a couple. From inside the couple, you have someone to call while standing in line. Does your girlfriend know? You must never ask. Instead, so many fish and which. The laws of attraction are this. There are no laws of attraction. A person likes a person. Both parties like each other and in each other enjoy being liked. Baste the fish in lemon and butter. They say it takes time to meet people. Do you agree? Sleep with your friend. Disagree? Cut him off. Put it in the oven. I wanted to talk a little about voice because I really like using speakers for poems, but what does that mean? It would feel restrictive to only be myself in a poem. And one of my favorite speakers is from this other place where everyone has a disability. So when she visits our place and when she has to explain herself and when she gets put into categories of either the hero or the villain, either inspiring or pitiful, she gets really annoyed. But she doesn't show it. She has a non-expressive face, much like Isabelle Huppert. And when I am a coward, she is brave, and when I am unsure, she is confident. I've been waiting all night. I reckon you were asleep with your girl before the phone rang. Make something up. I've been waiting all night to tell you about the couple in post-war France, the woman fresh in her grave, and the man who did not like his mistress dead, no sir, and so exhumed her to the dismay of his wife, who had him arrested for the stink he made. She was reburied and returned to the dead. After jail, he dug her up again, attached suction cups, and crafted a wig from a broom. You can go now. I'm more in the mood than you're used to. This next poem is inspired by Cicero and Eminem. And most recently, though I swear I wrote this poem first, it could be retro-inspired by that Taylor Swift song that's on the radio constantly right now. I'm forgetting the name, but anyway, this will make sense when I read the poem. It's called Cafe Loop. She's had it easy, you know. I knew her from FSU back before she was disabled. I mean, she was disabled, but she didn't write like it. Did she talk like it? Do you know what it is exactly? She used to wear these long dresses to cover it up. She had a poem in the Atlantic. Yes, I'll take water. Me too, with a slice of lemon. Oh, it must be so nice to have the Atlantic. Oh, she's had it easy, all right. She should come out and state the disability. She actually is very dishonest. I met her once at AWP. Tiny, limps a little. I mean, it's not really noticeable. What are you going to have? I can't decide. How can she write like she's writing for the whole group? I mean, really, it's kind of disgusting. It's kind of offensive. It's kind of a commodification of the subaltern identity. Should we have wine? Yeah, let's have something light. It makes you wonder how she lives with herself. I wouldn't mind. I would commodify and run. She's had it easy. I can't stand political poetry. She never writes about it critically. If it really concerns her, she should just write an article or something. I heard she's not that smart. My friend was in class with her, and he said, actually, she's not that smart. I believe it. I mean, the kind of language she uses, it's so simple, it's so elementary. My friend said she actually believes her poems have speakers. Oh, that's rich. I'm sorry, but if the book is called Amputee and you are an amputee, then you are the speaker. It's so new criticism. Really, I don't like her work at all. I find it lacking. While I was at Cincinnati, I took a class called Theory of the Short Story, and I felt very like uncomfortable that you could just come up with a theory of the short story to explain the magic of the short story. And so I was interested in mocking one of the assigned readings. And I thought, what happens if I just take out this one word and put in some other word? So the article was called Recalcitrance in the short story. And I took out recalcitrance and put in affairs. And it gave me this poem. Affairs. Affairs are amply appreciated by contemporary critics under the name of discontinuity. Affairs come into their own when we translate the whole question from structure to behavior. Affairs disappear altogether. Many affairs remain unabsorbed. The concept of the affair gives another dimension to the impact of epiphanies. Affairs in general may be analyzed according to whatever distinctions one uses in analyzing. Affairs are associated with shortness. Final affairs are an obstacle to artistic comprehension caused by the seemingly premature placement of the end. Such affairs exist in every perception that one's tentative comprehension is not complete. Such affairs depend on the convention that everything counts. Affairs challenge us at a fundamental level. Affairs are never completely resolved. Final affairs are the most extreme. This next poem came sort of like a gift. That happens every once in a while, right? You work on a poem for 3 months and then you write one sort of drunk at midnight. And the next morning, the one that you worked on for 3 months is terrible. And the one from midnight, not bad. Poem for his girl. This includes a stolen line from Horace. I'll tell you which panties look good on you. Psychedelic plaid with ruffles on the waist. Patriotic polka dot. The whale print is very... What is his name again? Those would look good on you. Those two, those also. Those two, I could see those on you. I could see you wearing those in his truck out past the Esso station to the field party that one time you got drunk and messed around with some of his friends, and he cracked 6 beers and felt old and drove to the cemetery and pissed on your father's grave. Here he comes around the corner. Are you writing about her? He says. I hope you're not still writing about her. If we went shopping, like today, you could ask why I'm sleeping with him and push me into the hangers. I'm not supposed to try you on anymore. The dead walk into poems all the time. No one complains. So in the middle of the book is an intermission, and I want to take an opportunity for like a PSA, which is that I'm grateful to everyone who supported this book on the Gala Fund page. Did I say it right? Okay. And I also think it's really cool that BOA does this. You can support individual books of poems each season. It makes you feel like you have something personal invested in that book. I love it. So I'm going to read one of these intermission poems. It's very strange. There I am in Argentina. It's raining. And every last tourist is telling me to go to Iguazu Falls. I don't know how many times I was told to go to Iguazu Falls. So I decided I would not go, but couldn't. But I would just pretend to be there. And then it was raining and these birds came to me, Bido and Marcel. And obviously now I can see that perhaps it's influenced by Aristophanes, the birds. But mainly they were just finches in my head talking. Okay. This one is called Go On, High Ship. They're birds, but you guys are smart. I don't have to explain anything. The falls were quiet with Bitto gone to raise feathers, and Kate invisible on Skype, and lone Marcel in the cave. I'd rather be a 0 than a 1, Marcel thought, looking up from Euclid's optics. The sun set on the lagoon as the tourists ambled through the park. Marcel was thinking of the rescue of a girl from a nearby jungle and how to be fetched out of something you had to be in something, and Marcel was not in anything other than a book. His screen did not ring, his job paid in seeds, he had no credit, no authority. He missed Kate, though he did not admit it. Instead, he thought, why are one so strange? If I chirp once, why do I always want another and am not content until I get it? Then he performed an experiment. Chirp, sang Marcel, and tried to let it be, go on with reading, but he couldn't. Before he knew it, chirp, chirp. He felt so much better and looked to Bitto's empty bed of leaves stolen from trees and wondered what sort of feathers Bitto was raising. He's a liar and a thief, Marcel thought, and he knew he was right to think so, but even lies add up to something. The gold finch sauntered in 6:30 with briefcase and insurance. He always talked what if something happened instead of what did happen. Goldie had these ideas, these grand ideas, such as, you are only pleased when eating ice cream, and in Key West, and etc. Marcel wished Bitto was there. Bitto liked to take Goldie's words and muck them, so Goldie's words on nothingness became in Bitto's beak, nothing that jizz and nothing that jism. Today, all business. We could insure your left wing, Goldie said. What if it gives out permanently? Marcel flapped the wing to show it worked. Goldie opened his briefcase, pulled papers from it, and set them on the dirt. What if a giant sloth lumbered into this cave and wanted it for himself and used the pages from your books for toilet paper and ate you? If I'm eaten, what do I need insurance for? Marcel said. After all, he was not in anything. He was not in trouble, not in a bind, not in a socioeconomic climate of anxiety. He was just a finch. Besides, he said, I've never seen a sloth, and I'm not sure sloth exist. And suppose they do, what would an animal of giant size want with a cave of this size? You never know, Goldie said, wetting a talon with his tongue. It was getting late. Marcel wanted to return to reading Euclid. He knew what was next, the grand ideas monologue. Okay, now we're going to jump out of the poem because I need your help. It's about to become a call and response poem. So when you see go on high ship, that's your part, okay? I'll jump back into the poem with me. He knew what was next, the grand ideas monologue that Goldie gave, and when he delivered it, he liked his listener to interrupt him and say, go on, high ship. Goldie began. I got married. I lived a long life with a wife who stopped reading my poems when I was 40, as if I died and my poems with me. Go on, so I traveled south the country, all became hysterical to me. Kiki, riki, no ruku, I was losing my mind, and in losing it, I realized I had nothing, and nothing had me. I told my biddy, I don't love you. If I said I loved you, I meant the nothing that is. I'm in love with plowboys and old women in wigs and bowls and broomsticks and paltry nudes and dwarfs. I'm in love with Florida and Havana and the Carolinas and Hartford, but mainly just Florida. Goldie wet his talons and bowed his head. Marcel thought his was an old story and he was an old finch. Since he was so unhappy, Marcel figured he should do something, become the what-did finch, but you cannot tell finches what to become. Later, Marcel had difficulty falling asleep. I will not think dirty things. I will keep the brain sharp for Euclid, honest for Hesiod. The cave was cold. Marcel saw the folds of Kate's plumes near her breast, and while it wasn't dirty, it wasn't clean either. And Marcel said, no, that's all that was. That's what did. That's done. He turned his thoughts to Goldie, poor Goldie, wetting his talons. The moon shone on the lagoon like a giant sloth. Marcel fluttered close to the wall of the cave and fell asleep, afraid, and began to have his what-if dreams of Kate, of high ships, of twos and threes, like all what-did finches do. Do you like Skype? If someone would please tell me how to look at the person in the eyeballs. Okay? We've got great technology. We should be able to figure this one out. Okay? It's called Why I No Longer Skype. Skype is on your Mac, on the table next to the Malbec and ashtray, next to the book that cost 120 pesos because you had to have Ulysses in English. You're in some town where your name does not exist and they rename you, so you're never sure who they're talking to. The screen rings. It's Big Logos. He downloaded the thing. First, a garbled voice comes from the keys, and then, can you hear me? By the power of Estonia, makers of software, haters of fees, the voice says your name, and he's not anyone, though anyone from Terre Haute to Rome could Skype you. He's someone you know or knew, which tense to use. Then his face appears by the folders, the clock, the Firefox, his face on his body in his bed 8,000 miles away, and he says, give me a hug. You both grab hold of your machines. You show your eyeballs to each other, all impressed with yourselves, as if your eyeballs have not always been there on your head. Good to see you, he says. Hey, can you look at me in the eyes? You try, but you're always looking sort of off. It's sad, but it feels good, like you love reading Ulysses, and you love being alone near the Marshall Mountains in Tierra del Fuego. He plays a cover of Bruce Springsteen by Lucero, and what a rad band. This is the life. This is your friend from way back. Though let's be honest, he was more than that, and not to trouble you with facts, he's still more than that. You're so hot for technology. This is better than instant messaging. You can't get enough of his pixels, and it must, please tell me, it must add up. All those hours spent listening to Lucero, who is okay, but let's face it, not Springsteen. And all those hours spent watching Hulu together, and now look at you staring at your screen, which is not ringing, which will not ring. It's always been just a screen. You can't blame it for that. Portrait of Big Logos. If you're there, I will look at the door to the motel room and I'll be in my violet dress because violet is one in away from violent, like come in. How was your trip? And if you're there, I'll spend the first 10 minutes ignoring you. I'll play Philip Glass and I will play Busta Rhymes. It depends on what type of there you are and what you're there for. I will read Berriman poems to you, only Berriman, and I am hungry, you will say, and you will keep being hungry, and there is no need for you to be there to know that. If you're there, you will have stopped being you, because being there in a motel room with me is something you no longer do, not the you I know, and not the you know either, and that's the violence of the whole thing. While I was down there, I started reading Alejandro Pizarnik's work, and also this poet named Antonio Porcia, and they gave me a great sense of the line, and their poems are very dark. Semi-dash. The last time I saw Big Logos, he was walking to the quantum physics store to buy magnets. He told me his intentions. He was wearing a jumpsuit with frayed cuffs. I thought the cuffs got that way from him rubbing them against his lips, but he said they got that way with age. We had 2 more blocks to walk. Once I do this, what are you going to do? He asked. I wish you wouldn't do it, I said. Big Logos bought the magnets and a crane delivered them to his house. After he built the 900 megahertz superconductor, I couldn't go to his house anymore because I've got all this metal in my body. I think if you love someone, you should not do that. You should not build something like that on purpose right in front of them. This will be the last poem I read from the book, and then maybe a couple new ones. I wrote this right after writing a novel, and I'm really interested in narrative in poetry, and so I brought some of that to this poem. Be not far from me. He called her number after many months, and he reached a man named Pete. This Pete, the man said, "Don't nobody answer here but me." So she had changed her number. It was almost like she wanted him to suffer. It was almost like having her new number would give him something that belonged to him anyway. During other hours of the day, he didn't want her number, and he would be fine without it, until he got stoned and thinking, and online found her faculty page. Well, she never should have said where she worked if she didn't want him to call her at work. He dialed, and a mechanical voice said, "We are not available. Please leave a message." What college had such primitive devices as standard answering machines? Where was she? Furthermore, what was this wee bullshit? Was she with someone? Was she seeing someone? Did the voice on the machine know something? It was just like leaving any other message except his heart beat differently. Had it always? Why, yes, hello, you're no longer at the number I had for you. I spoke to some guy named Pete. It's been a while, but I still miss you. This is pointless. Once he left the first message, it was easier to leave the second and third. He made a regular habit of calling her. It was like they talked. He told her about his student who won the Duquesne Fellowship. He told her about his reading in the Lower East Village. The audience really loved his poetry. He told her about his colleague who farted regularly in the office. It was always the same. "We are not available. Please leave a message." The voice was firm. The voice forced him to leave messages. He told her about his mom who sent an advent calendar with windows full of Xanax. He told her his mom always said he was a really good eater. He told her to call and gave his number, though he knew she had it. Where do you get off changing your number and not giving me the new one? Not reading Endless Love by Scott Spencer. Not taking me up on any of my recommendations, like when I recommend you call me back. He kept waiting for the tape on the machine to run out. Every time he called, 10th, 11th, and 12th now, he waited for the tape to run out. Weeks passed. He took a Xanax, he drank a beer, it was raining, there was a song, someone said something. He didn't put it that way on the machine. He didn't say, I'm stoned, I'm shit-faced, I'm calling because they were playing James Blunt in the Whole Foods market. Instead, he told her about the view from his office, the tops of roofs, the smoke plumes, the clouds. He was lipo sometimes and Catullus others. He made sure to get sweet after he got vulgar. It must have been an independent machine sitting next to the phone on her desk in her office, so he was on her desk talking. This isn't very nice. It's not very nice of you to go away, not tell me how to reach you. I'm starting to doubt the whole enterprise. He told her about a podcast and a movie. Once, after reading Wittgenstein, he left a message of silence punctuated by a nipple clamp. Sweet again. Thursday, it's me. You check this machine. You and me both know it. The tape never runs out. Don't ask any questions of me. Stay on your side of the tape. I don't love you. I'm sleeping with various women from the boroughs, professional and amateur. I miss you. Come see me. I saw a therapist. Her voice was like a cartoon. She wore pantyhose with tennis shoes. I said, this is the deal. I'm beginning to doubt the whole enterprise. There's no one I've seen that you need to know about. I had a bad dream last night. We died and came back to find each other in the Dulles airport bar. That's why it won't go away. You took me to the great sadness. You look cute even when you're emaciated. We were going to survive. We fully intended to be survivors, but all our poems went up in smoke, us too. I'm not writing. I haven't written since I saw you. I can't write. The therapist wasn't too worried about it. I couldn't take her seriously. I lied continuously. Pick up the phone. You must be checking your machine. Your students wonder where you are. Your boss left word. Don't you have any appointments to keep? Stop erasing me. Keep this one at least. This is a good one. All right, I'm going to read a poem that I was asked to do something for an anthology on the responsibility of the poet, and I thought, ooh, it sounds stuffy. So I thought, how can I make this fun? The responsibility of the poet in the voice of Ray Bradbury as channeled by the cyborg Jillian Weise. If you want to be a poet, Jesus God, make a list of 10 things you love the most in the world and write about them. Plug your leg into the wall and hop to it. Jesus God, you don't need a leg to write a poem. Have you read those poems I showed you? They're awful. Nothing happens. A dog gets shot. I love dogs as much as the next Wendell Berry, but why'd the dog have to get shot in the poem? Because the poet was asleep writing that poem and only woke up for the last couplet. If you want to be a poet, write a poem every day. I defy you to write 365 bad poems. All this talk about the responsibility of the poet as if it's a job. Does it wear a watch? Does it clock in and clock out? Does it time your lunch? Does it fire you for insubordination? I see you, the cyborg Jillian Weise, thinking ahead to whether the audience at the 17th annual Dine Rhyme will like this poem, and wondering if, in order for them to like it, you need to go back and cut out all those leg parts. Jesus God, stop thinking. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience. This is my last poem, and I don't know what I'm working on right now. I'm interested in spying. I'm interested in surveillance. I'm real interested in Snowden. But I don't know what it's going to become. But anyway, so this is a poem in the voice of Rahab from Joshua. There's a spies come visit her. The boys came to my house on the edge of Prattville and asked if I could love them, and I said, I reckon I can if you take off your shoes and put them by the mat and choose which of you goes first, because no matter what you've heard, I'm not like that. They were from 10 miles or more away and had been walking through the woods. First, I washed the first one's feet and rubbed him with Asterlube. Then Elroy, who is the sheriff, knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and he said, "Bring out them boys you got in there." I said, "Yes, I saw them walk to the store, and I saw them talk to Aunt Evie, and that is the last I saw them. You better hurry if you aim to catch them." See, I had hidden them under the stairs with the canned peaches and coats. "You better hurry," I told Elroy. Then the boys returned from under the stairs, and I said, "Now swear you won't kill me or my family," and they swore it. They put on their shoes and coats, and the first one stayed in the doorway. "Rahab," he said, "Rabbit, I'm coming back for you." When the time came, I hung my lingerie in the window and said my prayers. I haven't seen them since. All my neighbors are dead. Thank you.